Hey, this is a tutorial on G67 2.7a PBA 45 solve negative two-steppers. We call them ye old two-steppers. All right, basically a two-step equation. Your standard two-step equations on this page, you're either going to add or subtract first to isolate the variable, and then you're going to have to multiply or divide. So typically we use railroad tracks. I'm going to try to do my best. I have to write small to make this work, so I'm not sure if I can get my railroad tracks in. I'll put them in at the end if I can. All right, so we've got 5 plus 4n equals 29. Again, we want to get n by itself. We care about what n is. We don't care about 4n, or we don't care about what 4n plus 5 is. We want to isolate the n and get it by itself. So the first thing we do is we're going to either add or subtract. In this case, we're going to subtract because we have this 5 over here. We got to get rid of the 5. So I'm going to subtract 5 here, and I'm going to subtract 5 over here. Okay, now when I do that, I'm going to end up with plus 5 and a minus 5. That's 0. So if you want to put down 0 to make yourself feel all warm and fuzzy inside, go for it. I'm not going to put anything down because it means there's nothing there. It's plus 5, minus 5, there's nothing. Okay, so all that's left over on this side was 4n, and it equals 29 plus negative 5, or minus 5. These are different signs. The difference is 24. Okay, so now we have 4n equals 24. My next step is to either multiply or divide. Well, if I multiply it, I'm going to have 16n. I got to get rid of the multiplication. So to get rid of the multiplication, we'll use the opposite operation. So we'll divide. We'll divide this by 4. We'll divide this by 4. We've got 4 divided by 4, and that's going to be 1. So all we've got now is we've got the n left, and it equals 24 divided by 4, which is 6. Okay? So then you'd go up on top here and you'd find any answer that had 6 in it, and you would put the letter E in. Now, if you go up there and you don't see any, here's a couple 6s. If you go up there and you don't see your answer, you've probably missed a negative symbol somewhere along the line. This next one is the classic problem where kids miss a negative. So let's take a look at it. So now we've got negative 8 minus 3y equals 25. I know you think I'm sounding stupid and repetitive, but we don't care about any of this stuff except for the y. We want to know what y equals. Y equals 10, y equals 20, y equals 50, something like that, a simple statement. Okay, so we have to get the y by itself. So we've got this negative 8 here. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to either multiply, or sorry, we're either going to add or subtract. So let's add 8 to get rid of the 8. So plus 8 here. We've got to do the same thing on the other side of the equal sign, so we balance out that equation. Okay, put my line here because that's the first step of the equation. We've got plus 8, minus 8. Those cancel out. We've got minus 3y. Now, a lot of kids just think it's 3y, but that's a minus 3y. It's the same as plus a negative 3y. So that's a negative 3y there. And this over here, we've got 25 plus 8. Those are the same signs. We add them up and keep it. We've got 33. All right, so now we have to divide by 3 and divide by 3 to isolate it, right? Except if we divide 3, negative 3 divided by 3, we're going to have a negative y. So let's divide by a negative 3, because then we'll have a negative divided by a negative, and we'll have a positive y. Remember, I don't want a negative y, I want a positive y. So you have to do the same on both sides. So in this case here, now I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is just 1, or a positive 1y. I'm just going to put y instead of 1y. And we've got 33 divided by 3, which is 11. And we've got a positive divided by a negative, so that's a negative 11. Negative 11. And I'm not going to bother putting in the letters because I know you can figure that out. Well, let's slide over and do one of these ones with a fraction. Okay. 19 plus, you know what? I think a lot of you may have gotten that one. Let's skip down and do h. H looks a little harder. All right, so we've got negative 17 minus 4u, or u divided by 3 equals a negative 2. So let's look at our list up here. We either got to add or subtract first. So let's add 17 to get rid of the minus 17. So plus 17 here, we'll plus 17 here. Draw my operation line. We've got plus 17, minus 17. Those cross off. There's nothing left over here but this negative u divided by 3. And that equals 15. because these are different signs. We have a positive 17 and a negative 2. So different signs. We find the difference. It's 15. This has a larger absolute value, so we keep it positive, positive 15. But now we have u divided by, negative u divided by 3 equals 15. I got to get rid of this divided by 3, right? I'm just going to write over here. This is the exact same thing as this. The exact same thing, right? Remember, fraction bar means division. So I'm going to multiply by a negative 3 on this side. I'm going to multiply by a negative 3 on that side. Because when I multiply the negative times the negative here, not only will the 3's cancel out, but a negative times a negative will give me a positive 1u, or just a u, equals, now we've got 15 times 3, which is 45. And that's going to be a positive times a negative. That's a negative 45. Okay? I wish I had a sharper pen here. All right. Let's try a couple other with fractions. I'm going to slide this over again. Get this guy over here. Nobody likes this one. All right. Negative 1/5 d minus 1 equals 12. All right. Well, first let's get rid of this minus 1. So we get rid of minus 1 by adding 1 and adding 1. Okay? Plus 1 minus 1, we've got, that cancels. We have minus 1/5 d equals 13. Let's take and multiply both of these by a negative 5. Because I have negative 1/5, I'll use the reciprocal of that, or the flip-flop paddywhack. It's a technical term. Look it up. The reciprocal. And these cross off. So you have negative 5 times that 1/5. You know, if you thought about it, it's really 5 over 1. So if you were to multiply straight across, you'd have 5, because negative times a negative would give you 5. And then 1 times 5 would give you 5. You have 5 divided by 5, which is 1. So we just say that they cancel. You're left with d equals 13 times 5, which is 65. And it's a negative because there's one negative symbol. Okie dokie then. Y has been a very challenging problem. Let's take a look at y. I'm really not sure why, but all right. Negative 11 equals 61 minus 6q. Now some people might want to try to add 11 here, but no. We're trying to get q by itself. So we're going to subtract 61. So we subtract 61 from this side. We subtract 61 from this side. Positive 61, negative 61. They cancel. We've got 6q left. Now we've got 11 plus 61. Those are the same signs. We add them up. It's 72, and we'll keep the negative. So it's a negative 72. So now we'll divide by 6 to get rid of that 6q, because that's multiplication. The opposite's division. 72, sorry, this is a negative 6q. Bring down the negative. See how easy it is to make mistakes? So I'll divide by a negative 6. A negative 6, we end up with 12 equals q. Okay? Negative divided by a negative will give you that positive. Okie dokie. What do you want to do next? Should take a look at a word problem. That'd probably be a good idea. All right. Let's take a look at this one down the bottom. 3 desks and a bookcase together weigh 157 pounds. Okay? I'm thinking that that's going to equal 157. That's my guess right off the bat. The bookcase weighs 34 pounds. How much does each desk weigh? Well, so there's 3 desks. That'd be 3D, and I'm going to add 34 pounds for the bookcase, and together it equals 157. We just wrote ourselves a 2-step equation sentence here from that word problem. How much does each desk weigh? So the desks will be the D, we'll isolate it. So I'm going to subtract 34 here. I'm going to subtract 34 here. I've made better 3's. Okay. My 34s cancel off, but I got to do a subtraction here. So 7 minus 4 is 3. 5 minus 3 is 2, and I got a buck, 123. The minus 34 and the plus 34 canceled out, so I've got 3D equals 123. Well, divide by 3 to get rid of that 3D. Bam, bam, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. We got D remaining, and D equals 123 divided by 3. Well, let's think about this. 120 divided by 3 would be 40. So it only has to be one more, so 41. Looks like 41 pounds would be our answer. And if you look up on top, you'll find 41 pounds. Okay? Let's try another word problem. Mr. Piper's plumbing needed repairs. Mr. Piper's plumbing needed repairs. The plumber charged $98 for parts plus $45 per hour for labor. If the bill totaled $458, how many hours of labor were required? Well, you already know it equals 458. 458. And let's see, it was $98 for parts. So it's 98. And then $45 per hour, so it was plus the 45. Well, we don't know how many hours there are, so let's just use H for hours. So $98 for parts plus $45 for we don't know how many hours, and the total was 458. Yeah, that makes sense. Two-step equation time. Minus 98, minus 98. Bam, that crosses off. We're left with $45 per hour, or times the hours. And we have the little subtraction here. 8 minus 8 is 0. We'll trade here. 15 minus 9 is 6. And we've got 3 left over. 360. Okie dokie. So let's think about that. Now we've got 45H equals 360. So let's divide by 45 on this side. Divide by 45 on this side to isolate that variable. These cross off. You've got H is equal to, well, 45 goes into 90 2 times. And 90 goes into 360 4 times. So 8 would work. Be 8 hours. Let's see if 8 hours is up there. See if they got 8H, so I'm thinking that's what 8 hours is. So let me double check that again. 45 times 2 equals 90 times 4. So yeah, that would be right. 8 hours. Okay, let's do one of these problems up top here. Number 19. Go ahead and do that one too. So we have to subtract 19. Subtract 19. They cross off. You've got x divided by 2 equals 4 minus 19, or 4 plus a negative 19. Well, that's going to be 15 because these are different signs, and you have to find the difference. The difference between 19 and 4 is 15, and the negative has a greater absolute value, so it's a negative 15. So now x something divided by 2. So let's multiply by 2 to get rid of that. The 2's cross off. You've got x equals a negative 30. Okay? Let's double check here. We had 15 times 2. It's a negative. Yep, negative 30. All right, I'm going to do one more. A lot of people struggle with this one down here. So I'll do this one. Negative 64 equals minus 15m minus 4. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this 4 so we can get that m by itself. So plus 4. Now, these cross off. We're left with, this is me, a negative 60 equals a negative 15m. Well, I'm going to divide by a negative 15 to get that rid of that negative. Multiply by negative 15. Divide by negative 15 over here. I'll move this up over here now. So the negatives cross off. I'm going to be left with a positive m. And then 60 divided by 15 is 4. So 4m equals 4. And you can always check these by pumping them in. This would be negative 15 times 4 would give me a negative 60. A negative 60 minus 4 would give me a negative 64. That's what the answer was over there. Okay? Lovely. Good luck. Have a good weekend.